Hey everyone, this is Joe from BitBang. This is a video, part of a bigger video series of the TKO, its features and its functions, what to expect, how it works, things of that nature. In this video, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Fiesta RGB. So the Fiesta is the name of I guess the code base. If it was its own product, it'd be called the Fiesta board, but it can't be purchased anywhere except for what's inside the TKO. So it just like the magicians and the antagonists, they're part of the TKO code base, if you will, and that's just the way it works. So there is a port on the TKO, and it's right here. I'm gonna call it the RGB port, right? Because for RGB LEDs, and it does work with the typical LEDs you'd find in the market. Though I'm gonna go include a wiring harness for other boards or other LED boards that are just not the same wiring. I believe the Kaimana is the same pinout. I'm gonna go ensure of that and put in the manual when it's written. If not, I'm gonna include a little cable so you can just plug it in here. It'll be labeled Kaimana cable and you'll just plug it into your Kaimana LEDs. It'll work fine. Same thing for focus tack LEDs. You'll plug it in here. I'll tell you it's a little adapter cable. You plug it in and you go ahead, right? So when you go ahead and use these LEDs, if you've never used them before, they're just these little satellite looking kind of LEDs. And they have usually a direction. It says in and out. If you notice, this is the one made by the train that focus tack sells, right? So here's the input and then here's the output. And they're addressable, so that means that you don't have to run parallel power and ground. And they're in a string here, see? They're just all stringing along here. And the string has to start with something controlling it, right? So the way it would work is you'd get a cable that I supply you, or you could find somewhere else. It plugs in here, and then it plugs into here, and then this would be LED 1, right? This would be LED 1, LED 2, and so on. And it only works for a certain, well, at least this one here. Mechanically, it only affixes to one kind of button. So these are solid wall buttons here. And I don't know all of the markets for the LEDs and what kind of satellites are out there, but it does work for the focus attack ones at least. Again, it probably works for the Kamana. I have to go check. And by the time the manual comes out, we'll know the answers to that. So I have these wired for all these buttons here, for 8 buttons. And what's tricky about this is that things like the Kamana, you gotta program the whole thing yourself. So if you're not that good at programming or just configuring or trying to put things together, which is, I think, one of the biggest complaints about the Kamana and products like that in general, is that you have to know how to do these things. We tried a more holistic approach, and we just said, we're gonna give you pre-programmed patterns, just choose them, don't worry about the colors, don't worry about anything else, we'll just figure it out for you. So when you first open the app and you connect to it, right, you'll get to the main menu, you'll see RGB or Fiesta RGB, and you'll see all of this here. On release, we're not gonna go ahead and release the on press. On press just means when you press the button, it stops the idle pattern animation. So let's say if there's like a fire pattern going on and you press it, the fire pattern would cease to animate, and then you'd see like your button either light up and turn off, or inverse, it would be on and you turn it off with the button press, or some other kind of on press kind of activation animation, right? So we're not going to release that. We are going to in the future. The functionality is all there. It's going to work. So don't worry about that. What we do have right now is the layout and the wire order. So again, you have to know how to program, which means you have to know how to connect these up if you're doing something like a Kamana kind of setup, or something similar. There are configurators out there that I've seen from other websites. That's fine too, and they tell you how to wire it up. But not everyone has kind of the same setup, so we just chose 4 very popular setups. We chose 6 button, we chose 8 button, 6 button plus direction, that's these buttons here for leverless, and then 8 button plus direction again. And when you press them, you'll see it'll show you what your controller should be wired, right? So my controller here only has 8 buttons, so I don't have these buttons for direction, but I have these. If you have like a hitbox, let's say, right? It has possibly 8 buttons and this. So you go in here first. Once you place them, well, before you place them, you go in here first. So you read the manual, go in here first, and you choose your layout. Okay. And if you didn't read the manual, or you just didn't know there was one, in case you didn't read it, there's the daisy chaining order right here. So it says here, start the TKO. So start the TKO, plug it in here, and then the very next LED in the chain should be going to up. So you take this and you make sure you put this on the up button. The next one over should be the 1K. And you just string these LEDs along like that until the end of the chain. And if you do that, it'll work correctly. All the animation will just work as expected. If you don't do that, let's say you kind of chain them here, then here, then here, then here, just all jumbled up, you'll see like this weird rainbow pattern, for example, or fire, you wouldn't really notice it, but you would notice in some patterns it just wouldn't animate correctly. So just go in here, press your layout, 8 button, right? And continue with the Y order. If you go back, once you do that, you can now choose your pattern, right? We don't have a lot of patterns right now. We're going to be adding more as we go along. But the ones that we definitely wanted to release with were Rainbow Crawl, right? This moving around rainbow here. Same thing, but with like these little spurts of a sparkling white. We have Breathe, where it just kind of goes up, then it goes down, right? Kind of like someone taking a breath. And we have this fire pattern. And the colors, we can go ahead and keep adding on the same kind of patterns, maybe without, let's say, red and yellow. We'll do like blue and yellow or blue and purple, something that's more appealing. We could do every color, but it would just make this, in our opinion, it would break the whole holistic approach of it, and it would make it more complicated. The goal is to just have somebody with minimal knowledge just plug it in as it says, and then press a button, and it just works, right? That's the whole goal. So I'm going to leave it on Rainbow Crawl Twinkle, right? I'm going to go back, and that's pretty much it. Now, the on press, the way it's going to work is, let's say you have an idle pattern and an on press pattern chosen. Let's say when you press the button, it'll stop this, and then it turns it on, and when you press the button, it'll just do random colors with each press. The thing is, though, you want to know how long it'll take to idle, right? So we have 3 options right now, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and 90 seconds. That means that, let's say it's animating, right? You press it, now you're playing a match, and let's say you stop pressing for 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, it'll start to animate again. Same thing for 60 and then 90. So that's pretty much how that works. For never idle, that just means that you just don't want this to animate at all. You just want to see the on-press patterns. For always idle, it just means that you only want to see this pattern always animate. When you press it, you just don't want it to go away. And that's pretty much it. In terms of lag, the way the ESP32 works, it's actually a dual-core processor in here. And the way this is wired up is that one core handles all of the communication ports for taking the buttons in and sending information to the USB emulation engine in here. The other part of it is going to be Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and the RGB animation. So that's to say that any code that you're using to execute a move in a game or do any kind of input, it's not going to affect it based on your pattern. Your pattern is running on a totally different core. It does not influence it at all. That's why if you'll notice, if you have your controller animating and you press Bluetooth connect, you'll see it kind of twitch. That's because the Bluetooth is taking priority over the LED animation, and you'll see it kind of mess up a little bit and then calm down when it's connected. That's because it runs in the same core. But if you press this button and you try doing inputs, you'll never see the animation twitch or anything because it's just not the same core. So don't worry about lag. That's a problem with a lot of single core processors. They just can't easily handle animations and button inputs without any kind of, penalty for lag. So don't worry about that. And that's pretty much it. One thing to note is power consumption. We programmed these LEDs to be half the power and then a little bit less. The way the human eye works is that you're not gonna really notice a difference in brightness after you get to the halfway point. If you're, let's say you're at 50% brightness, and then you go to 75 based on current, you'll never see the difference. So we scaled it in a way where you'll still see it plenty bright, and it won't destroy, let's say, like a USB port on your computer. It's gonna be, it's handled in a way where it's safe. I've seen other LEDs with these rings have like 4 LEDs on them, and they just full blast them. It might work, it might not. That gets me worried as a person who designs electronics. So I made sure to make this as conservative as possible. You shouldn't see any problems. If you do, please let me know, but I've already taken power and safety in consideration. So rest assured, you don't gotta worry about it. Now, if you keep chaining together LEDs beyond the layout, I can't guarantee the functional safety, but as long as you follow within the manual and the layout parameters, you'll be just fine. And that pretty much concludes it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.